Hello, my name is Stefan Heroes, I'm also known as Axilla, and this is going to be a kind of a go-through of a Heroes League draft that I'm kind of simulating for you now. This is going to be a tutorial-ish video on basically how to draft and how to counter-pick your opponents and also how to kind of combo pick. So what I've done, Team 2 is straight. Okay, so this banning phase is just completely null and void. So I'm just going to ban 2 heroes that don't matter at this point. Whilst I talk, I can't get rid of the banning phase on Stormcraft. I wanted to bring up Stormcraft because it shows all the heroes, which is quite key for this. So yeah, basically, Team 2 are just going to do a draft, whilst Team 1 are going to kind of counterpick them and try and pick some sort of combo. So let's see if I can't get this going. Here we go. So I'm just going to get rid of a couple heroes that don't particularly matter. Now the map so far is Battlefield of Eternity. I will do this with alternate maps, but I'm just going to kind of give you a summation. Now for those who do get Stitches and Gazlo in their drafts, that's kind of an unusual thing, so I'm just going to go with a typical thing. So say Team 2 right now, they pick up completely bog standard heroes. So let's say they go for a Kael'thas as a first pick. Now Kael'thas is a ranged assassin, a lot of magic damage, a lot of burst, and gets a really big power spike once he hits 13. What's a good counter to Kael'thas? What's a good kind of reaction pick? Well, first off, you want to be trying to pick up your warrior, or your support. You want either the best support, the best warrior you can possibly get with your time, with your picks. And since Team 1 is now going to have the next 2 picks, they're like, okay, great. Well, I'm going to pick up Leoric Tank because he is such a strong tank, and he basically forces your opponent to kind of reluctantly take up Johanna, since Leoric counters Johanna quite well. And even then, Team 1 can consider going for a double warrior lineup to go on the Kael'thas. In which case, they'd consider, say, a Tyrael, but Tyrael is more of a niche pick, so he should be hidden. Obviously, you don't get to choose when and what, but if you're seeing your team picks going, you're trying to talk through the team, and people are willing to play what they want, and this is potentially a decent kind of cover guide for you. So let's say you get a person on your team go, okay, well, Zeratul top of the meta, we'll just pick Zeratul. I mean, obviously, in 6 days now, he's not going to be so good because of Wormhole nerf. However, he's still a decent hero, so you get your Leoric and your Zeratul down. Solid picks. Battlefield of Eternity, it's all about staying alive and fighting over that immortal. If you can defend and then gank and come back, Leoric's a really, really good tank for that in that respect, because he can come back alive quickly right in the middle of the fight. So now, Team 2, they're like, okay, so they've got Leoric, we're going to pick up the Johanna tank, because Johanna tank. That's basically it. And they're going to actually grab their support now and say they go with the most common, which is Uther. Okay, so Team 1, which is our team, we're just like, okay, they've picked up Uther Johanna, and they have Kael'thas, which means they have Divine Shield to protect the Kael'thas, or even the Johanna. They've got lots of stuns. How do we deal with this? Well, we're going to need, because of the Kael'thas damage, either a lot of burst healing in the form of Rhaegar, or we're going to need a healer who can keep himself alive, say the Malfurion, with Ice Block. Now, on top of that, you could even go as far as to say Karazim. Now, the reason I'm going to point out Karazim here is because Karazim is really good on Battlefield of Eternity. He doesn't use his mana to heal, so in the early game, or it doesn't use much of his mana to heal, obviously Breath of Heaven. So in the early game, he's a really, really solid support to just kind of sustain through the fights over the Immortal. So Karazim would be a very, very good pick here. On top of that, he has his effective cheat death for anybody in his team who gets blown up and focused by, say, the Kael'thas. So Karazim would be a good hero to pick in counter to this, and specifically on this battleground. Now you also get another pick here, and we've been considering going Tyrael a little bit. However, you already have 3 melee, so you kind of want to cover with a bit more range. Now, who's a very consistent ranged assassin? Reyna. He outranges Kael'thas, he does decent damage, and he's got a self-heal. He's a tanky ranged assassin, so Reyna is a really, really good pick versus Kael'thas. Now, I say he's tanky, he has a self-heal, which keeps him alive. He got a lot of sustain from that. That's a really, really good pick. So, Team 1, Reyna as that ranged assassin. They're now going to look for a second ranged assassin. As that would be kind of ideal as a mix-up. You don't want to have 4 melee, 1 range. That wouldn't work out too well unless it was a really, really focused composition. Now, Team 2, they're like, okay, so let's just pick up our last 2 heroes and let's go for the most standard in the meta. We'll go with, like, Vala and Zagara. Now, Zagara is a good split pusher, she's good at soaking, whilst Vala's got her vault, so she has an escape, so she, over, say, a Jaina, things like that, who don't have escape, and Jaina has to then talent into, like, Ice Block or Frost Armor, especially versus Zeratul. So, gone with more standard picks that can even kill the Zeratul quite easily, which is the Vala and the Zagara. Now, Team 1, we're kind of in a rut here. They've picked up 3 super strong ranged assassins. We have a melee healer, a melee tank, and a melee DPS, as well as the Reyna. Now, we're going to need something else to help us out. Tyrael would still be a good pick, though, because he has the cover shields to help keep his team alive. On top of that, we could even look at ranged assassin, say, or ranged support, like Tassadar Tyrande, because Tassadar's got his shields to help keep the Leoric and stuff alive. Tyrande's got a heal. So, looking for something along those lines. Now, I've mentioned Jaina. Jaina's not necessarily the best pick here, though, because they have a lot of burst damage, and she can take Ice Block, which would be very, very good for her against them. We may not, your team could be in such a deficit at this point that they lose before before you guys are able to get to level 13, because swings can happen, but once a team starts snowballing, if they play it well, it's hard to come back from. So, another good hero who has zoning, is kind of like a pseudo kind of stun rather, is Nazeebo. Nazeebo is very good because he's a ranged assassin, is Gargantuan or even Ravenous Spirit. With the 3 melees means he's going to get a lot of peel, a lot of attention taken away from him. There's a lot of good positions for him in Battlefield Eternity. I'm going to pick him up before the timer runs out. But Nazeebo is a really strong pick on Battlefield of Eternity, since he can set up zombie walls, he can throw spiders, deal damage to the Immortal from a range, just like Zagara can. He can solo push, just like Zagara can, as can the Leoric. Similar to the Johanna. And on top of that, there are a lot of good places on Battlefield of Eternity for Nazeebo to position himself for a really good Ravenous Spirit. Now, Gargantuan might be picked up, depending on who your Nazeebo player is. Gargantuan's kind of more comfortable and easy, but for the really good Nazeebo players, Ravenous Spirit can do a lot more work than Gargantuan, so it's kind of a personal preference thing. But Nazeebo would not be a bad pickup there at all. He fills in that ranged assassin spot that you need to. He is relatively survivable with his zombie wall and the fact that he can just kind of pressure things from range, and the later the game goes, he and Reyna, for example, get better and stronger. He gets more health, more mana, and the Reyna, if he takes Season Marksman, which I don't think you necessarily would that often on Battlefield of Eternity, but can get really strong into the late game. Zeratul scales well, yada yada yada. Zeratul is a really good pickup versus people like the Vala, the Kael'thas, the Zagara, because that way he can just kind of jump in, do a little damage, throw a couple bombs and wormhole out as soon as possible. So that's a potential draft there for Battlefield of Eternity, and I hope I've kind of explained some decent stuff going on here. I want to get into another one and explain some more of that, so bear with me. Okay, so we're getting into this next draft now, and it's random, so it's completely random which team starts. Both teams ready, counting down, yada yada yada. I'm going to just get rid of these bans immediately, so I'm just going to ban the same material, I would think. Now, Cursed Hollow is a much bigger map. It's a map where it's not all about sustain, fighting over, say, one location, like Battlefield of Eternity is, defending your Immortal, but it's about being able to split effectively and have a lot of solo laners. So let's say Team 2 does the exact same draft, so won't necessarily do it in the same order, but we will pick up Kael'thas first. So this is 2 different maps against the same draft, and picks that are really good in this location. You want a team that can support, that can kind of outlast your opponents as far as fighting over the tributes go, but more importantly, you want a team that can solo lane and dual lane really effectively. Normally you'll have 2 solo lanes and a triple lane, or potentially a dual lane and a couple, or three solo lanes, and a lot of people kind of roaming. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick up immediately the Johanna tank. Now the reason pick up the actually, can I do that? No, we're going to go against the exact same draft. So let's go with the Leoric tank again. Now Leoric is a really good warrior. He, like I say, he kind of counterpicks Johanna since he can drain all her health, and that's really, really strong. He also has his Wraith Walk to get out of sticky situations, and in that regards, kind of Muradin would also not be a bad pick. Now, we might as well pick up our support here first, since we don't want our opponents to have a good sustained support. We don't want our opponents to have a good kind of laning support. Cursed Hollow has lots and lots of little alleyways, lots and lots of bunching up, so Malfurion would be a particularly good support against opponents on Cursed Hollow, because you're able to almost out-sustain. Tranquility can just do so much work in these small areas over the tributes, and also he's got roots to zone, he's got some scouting with his Moonfire, all that sort of jazz is really, really good. Now, second team, we'll just say let's go Uther and Johanna again, wherever Johanna is. And okay, so that we know they're going for the exact same draft, doesn't matter. We're picking and banning for the map. So Malfurion over the Karazim for this map, because you don't necessarily need to fight for the first two tributes. You can just completely soak lanes, maybe have somebody stall out until level 10, and then you can win because you've got the level 10 first, or at the same time, and then you can take a fight because you've got better, kind of more late game, mid-late game orientated ultimates. So then, with the Malfurion in there, let's go for some kind of cover damage. Now, you've got a couple options here with, say, the Sergeant Hammer or even the Jaina. You want to pick up a good chunk or a good ranged assassin, and Turan's actually really good on this map as far as team sustain and scouting, so she could be a very good niche pick, but right now we're just going to pick up the Jaina. She can solo lane quite well, as long as she stays safe, but more importantly, she's really, really powerful in the tri-lane that you'd throw with, say, the healer. You'd have Leoric solo lane and the Jaina not. So with the Jaina, let's look for another kind of range cover assassin, somebody who else who can get in, or even a second warrior. Now the reason I say a second warrior is because if you have a lot of sustain in the late game, you're going to scale quite well, and it's going to mean that the Kael'thas is going to do less and less and less. So I mentioned Muradin, and because the time is running out, I'm going to pick him. Muradin is really good on Cursed Hollow because there's all these small alleyways, there's all these small little walls and stuff that you can jump over, so he can stay alive really easily. Like, he can get a really good position, stun some people out, potentially put a lot of harass damage onto the Kael'thas, and then as soon as he gets low, just dwarf toss himself over a wall, and he's in safety. Then he gets a lot of his health regen come back, and yeah, he's a really good sustain hero. And the fact that he can be put on a solo lane quite happily, or in the tri-lane, if that's what you want to go with, which it looks like our draft is panning out to be, that's a really, really good thing to potentially do. So Team 2, they're thinking of their draft now. We know that they're going to go with the Zagara and the Vala, so let's throw those in there. So we see a Zagara, and we're like, okay, she's going to split push a lot. We're going to have somebody to counter push her. The Leoric's a good one at that. He can get harassed quite easily by the Zagara, but at least he can counter push the waves and kill the minion waves that spawn quite easily. In the meantime, then they're going to pick up the Vala, as we saw last draft. Vala does a lot of cover damage with a multi-shot, so she can even go auto-attack build, which can be quite awkward. But we have a double warrior at this point. We're in a really strong position now. We've got a really hugely strong ranged assassin in the Jaina. She's a lot of damage, provided she doesn't get focused down. Johanna's not the best initiation tank, just has to try and walk through, but we've got lots of stuns, we've got lots of slows, we've got roots. This is looking really, really good for keeping the Jaina alive. Now we can go for two options here. We can either go for another keep the Jaina alive draft, or we can go pick, which would be, say, with an Anubarak or a Tyrael, or we can go with another ranged assassin, which would be better at this point. And I'm going to pick up Reyna here before the time runs out, and then I'm going to explain why. Reyna is, again, tanky. He can solo lane quite well. The fact that this is such a large map means that games go on for quite a long time, which means Reyna is a late game oriented pick. You will normally pick up Seasoned Marksman on Curse Hollow as an example. We can see that they don't have much of a ganking lineup unless they have the Vala, Zagara, Johanna solo lanes and the Kael'thas and the Uther goes in. And only if one member of your team is being really unsafe will they get picked off by the Kael'thas gravity lapse into the Uther stun. Now, you've got a Jaina who can freeze and scout with into bushes with Frostbolt and things like that. Pretty okay, but she's not the safest solo laner. Reyna, however, super safe solo laner. He's fine. He's got his heal. He's got his movement speed buff. He will be okay. Muradin, another really safe solo laner. He can dwarf toss himself out. Leoric, another safe solo laner. He can wraithwalk himself out as well as provide slows and clear the creep waves a lot. So chances are the tri-lane, which is what would work best for Team 1's lineup, in my opinion, would be the Malfurion plus Jaina, and then either the Muradin or the Reyna. The Muradin gives more kill potential for a stun into a root into the Blizzard slows, all that stuff. But the Reyna is not quite as good a solo laner, or not quite as safe a solo laner from ganks as the Muradin, so he can even go with them, and they've got a really good draft here. This draft on Curse Hollow, it can do a lot of poke damage. It can halt out the tributes being gotten whilst split soaking to get level 10 fast. As soon as the level 10 hits, Reyna's Raiders or Hyperion either are good. March of Black King or Entomb on this map, either are good. I slightly prefer March of Black King on this map. Got Water Elemental or Ring of Frost, again, either are good on this map. Maybe Ring of Frost if the Jaina player is really good or can get her rings in a great position over the tribute. Muradin with his avatar is going to sustain a lot, and the Malfurion healer with Tranquility is just going to do more. Especially, now the opponents do have more from Zagara, so Malfurion just has to watch out for that positioning. But a lot of the focus can be put onto the Zagara or onto the one of the three ranged assassins from the Muradin. Muradin can get himself in there and do a lot of harass damage and dwarf toss himself out. So he's in a really strong position to kind of harass down one, maybe even two of the ranged assassins at a time and then get out safely. So hopefully this kind of draft ranting, as I'm going to call it, has been helpful for you guys. Any other questions, or if you want me to cover more maps or things like that, please let me know in the comments below. Subscribe if you want more videos like this. Yada yada yada. I stream quite regularly on Twitch. It's kind of awkward times, so if you can tune in, that'd be great. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I've been Stefan Heroes, and until next time.